There's a logo that is up there on the screen. You see it as DraftKings. It's as beautiful. It's as nice. And we like them a lot. Okay? And they like you a lot. Because they are the top rated sports booking app in the U.S. the way that we like to work. And on top of that, they are safe, they are secure, and they are reliable, Deke. There is nothing better when you hit on that parlay, the same game parlay too. Or, you know, when you just have that one-off, you just feel good about this prop bet. You're like, man, I think that my dog gonna throw a tutty today. Sometimes it just is like that, and DraftKings give you those opportunities. But more importantly, they give you a promo code, and that promo code is MOATS. You use that when you make that first deposit of $5. You're going to get a smooth $200 in DraftKings deposit money. And that is a great situation because you get to use that money to go out there and potentially make more money. It's a good situation. It's like a win-win. You catch my drift?
100%.
But, Deke, I also know at times some people go past 100% and they're not able to turn that switch off. It stays on for too long.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when those people go through those experiences, sometimes you have to ask yourself if you or someone you may know has a gambling problem. They might need some crisis counseling. Shoot, Deke, they might even need referral services. Now, if they're living in New York, on the screen right now, there is a certain number that they could call or text. For my New Yorkers, New York, New York. But for everybody else, the number that you need to call is 1-800-GAMBLER. I said a 1-800-GAMBLER. Yesterday's game, as disheartening as it was also very encouraging because it showed me, man, that Bengals team, they are literally a year and a half ahead of us in the development process. And when we really talk about position for position, especially on that offensive side, you'll see it. Kenny Pickett versus Joe Burrow. Both played well, right?
Around.
No. But think about this, right? Both played well, did they not?
They did.
But what was the difference? Joe could go that next level, right? Kenny kind of teetered off in the end. When we talk about the running back room, we obviously had Najee, and Najee played really well. But in terms of the impact of it, was his impact more than what Samaje Perine
I was going to say, it's tough because Mixon was out. But no one was expecting Perine to do that.
But either way, from that backfield, they had more productivity there. When we talk wide receivers, George Pickens, heck of a game, right? T. Higgins, who had the better night? And when we're talking about our offense, how about we even go to the offensive line? Jonah Williams and La'el Collins versus Dan Moore and Chuks Okorafor. Both had mismatches, right? But who held up their end a little bit better? Their guys did. It's no surprise, but their guys are a little bit further in their development, a little bit further in their progressions of being NFL players. So when I look at the game and how it played out, it's like, man, we are not that far off. Let's be real about it. And we still did a lot of positivity. But that is the difference between the good teams and the really good teams, or the teams that are vying to be really good. That Bengals team, they brought a lot of players back from that Super Bowl run. But think about how they got to that Super Bowl run. When they got to that postseason, it was execution under pressure. It was details. And when that game happened yesterday in that third quarter, it was no big scheme thing. And granted, there was some little schematic things that we will address. But as a whole, it really came down to those little details. Their veteran players, or their more veteran players, making the plays that our players were not making consistently enough. And that, to me, is just one of those things where we have to understand that, yes, we want our progression, our development to be there right now. We want that instantly. But that's not how it works when you're talking about professional football. It does take some time. Now, it doesn't have to take multiple years, as we saw with Cincinnati. It took them a year and a half. Because even last year, it wasn't like they had it perfectly in the regular season. We've highlighted that. They got it going in December. And then after that, postseason, when they really got it clicking. But it took them time to figure that out. And now I'm looking at our roster, and I'm like, man, we are literally that team a couple years early. Like, this is where we're at right now. I don't, like I said, it's not a great situation because we don't want to hear that we want to win right now. But in terms of the optimism and why we keep feeling hopeful, that is why, because it is showing repeatedly now. We just have to get it for 4 quarters. And that's the next stage in this thing.
Yeah, I like everything you said there. Also consider Joe Burrow was just on one yesterday. Mm-hmm. He just was. Like, even the times we were in really good coverage, he made a really tight window throw where only the receiver could get it, and they caught it.
And what do we call him, right? Is he a quarterback or is he a franchise quarterback?
He's a top 5 quarterback.
He's top 5 quarterback.
He's a top 5 quarterback right now. Actually, me and my buddy were talking about, like, dudes, who would you have locked in as a quarterback right now that you knew was a franchise quarterback for the next 10 to 15 years?
Yeah.
And the only ones we could really think about was just like Mahomes. He's a guarantee. I'm just talking about literally guarantees.
Yep.
And then I said Burrow. I said Mahomes, Burrow, and then probably Herbert would be your top 3. So he's one of those guys. And sometimes you just got to chalk it up to great play by him.